Hi guys, we are here again, back at it, and today Toffel is teaching me magic basically because I edited one of his shorts and it was very interesting and also you people really liked it. That's why we're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like our content and then we'll see us in the next video, but for now,
this is what we're doing.
Get me enlightened.
So Magic has a lot of rules that you follow, and obviously Magic is a very complex game, so a lot of the decisions you have to make are reduced to a lot of basic rules. Usually you call them heuristics. The goal is to give the tool to make a decision. You ask like, oh good, how do we actually apply those things, right? I mean, you started to play Pioneer. I mean, we talked about the basic 3 triangle of decks, that the aggro deck loses to the midrange deck because the midrange deck is a little bit slower and more powerful, and then the midrange deck loses against the control deck and the aggro deck beats the control. The reason why that is, you use your life total as a resource. That meaning you give up life totals to go later into the game to cast your more expensive and powerful spells. And the distance of that time should be not too big, because if it's too big, you die, like the aggro against the control deck. But it also shouldn't be the same or too small, because then you're doing the same thing as your opponent. If you end up losing like 10, 15 life, and then you play all your powerful spells, that's a good barrier where you still have some life to deal with and you play some spells.
There's only like the one thing when you're at 3 life and you play against burn, right?
Yes, there are actually some instances where your life total is so low that you have to make worse decisions to protect you not losing the game. For example, there's a situation you've seen that good players maybe do. They have a remove a spell for a creature. Let's say you have a lightning bolt and your opponent has a creature, right? And they could remove the creature by playing the bolt, but they say, I'm taking the damage for this turn. Maybe you play something better. I want to lightning bolt. Let's say it's a 2/2, they attack you, you go to 18, and then they play nothing. Then at the end of turn, you bolt the creature, which you could have done before, but you didn't quite know what the state of the game is going to look like. And this is one of those examples where you say, you know, I have life total, I have resources, I can take those hits and then make a better decisions later. So in Pioneer, as aggro decks, you can say you have mono white humans, which is fairly aggressive. You have a Gruul, Stompy deck with Ember Cleaves and all that stuff. You have some mid-range decks, some red-black, mid-range, powerful stuff. You have some control decks like white. All of those things add up. And another factor for this rule is the more narrow your card pool is, the more it applies to a thing. Because when you're in Standard usually, or in Pioneer, this rule is quite potent because a lot of the powerful creatures and spells work on their own. They don't have synergy that much. But if you go to Modern, or if you go to Legacy, a lot of the interactions are way more powerful than the concept tells you. Like, you need more specific answers or more.
Yeah, also, I think more game knowledge. That's why I'm really interested in Pioneer right now, because it's not only a bit cheaper than Modern or Legacy or Vintage or whatever, but also there are not as many, there's still so many cards, but not as many. So yeah, it's much easier for a new player to be like a bit more competitive and not just casual commander with your friends in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have that many cards, you kind of have to play the best cards given the strategy.
So as I told you, I started playing Pioneer and I first picked the Gruul Challenger deck. If I would go against an aggro deck, what would my decisions be? Like maybe in the first game, can I do anything already? And then especially when sideboarding.
Once your opponent plays a white creature, you know you're up against like a tempo deck. You have to use your spells. I mean, you know how to use the spells. You kill the creature and play it. It's more about changing your deck through sideboarding or building your deck when you know a certain meta game. Yeah, let's take the Gruul deck and look at the 3 different things. Gruul is the mid-range deck. It kind of functions as something in between aggressive and mid-range. So if you play against the aggro deck of the format, you're trying to be a little bit slower, which you naturally are because your creatures are a bit more expensive. You play Chariot, you play a lot of redrops, the Reckless Charger and stuff. So you're trying to survive, make your creatures better. So you're boarding in a lot of removal spells that keeps that same idea happening. You want to kill your opponent's creature and then over time play your big creature spells. So you're boarding a lot of Thundering Rebukes, Rending Volleys, the stuff that is in your sideboard for exactly that matchup. And then once you get to the stage of having 5 or 6 mana, you can use your cards like the Crow and War, which is also very powerful against aggressive decks. And then once they unfold their strength, you're just beat them by having poor power.
The little tiny humans have to try too.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You have to access the tipping point of your board state being good enough that you stabilize. And then once you do so, the creature's just inferior. Like you do way more powerful spells. And your opponent kind of will do the same a little bit, also boarding into better creatures, more protection spells to fight against this idea a little bit, because they know you go a little bit like in their direction, they want to also go a little bit in that direction to not stay the underdog. So let's say you play a mirror. In the mirror, we said you also want to be a little bit slower. Since you play the same deck, you're putting in more powerful spells. Planeswalkers are usually one of the very prominent things that you put in because everybody boards in more removal spells, they get naturally slower. And once you have very powerful Planeswalkers, all the effects add up and make your game, I think. You see, like you play more resilient, more powerful stuff to make the mid and long game go into your favor because you don't die early. With all the removal spells you're boarding, you are very good by reaching turn 6, turn 7, turn 8. Also one of the effects, we said you have a Crow and War and your main deck and sideboard. You're also upping those numbers because that card is very powerful in the mid to late game because it has such a major effect of stealing your opponent's creatures and then killing everything at once.
I assume if it goes against the control deck with my already a bit aggro to mid-range deck, I would try to lean completely towards the aggro side.
That is one possibility. In this case, the meta doesn't shape out like this, so this is where the rule doesn't apply to itself. You actually tried to be more powerful, slower than the control deck after boarding. So the control deck will board more spot removals, more wrath effects, more stuff that interacts with you, and you're actually trying to be even slower than the control deck.
So basically the general rule would be to be faster, but you always have to keep an eye on the meta to know if it really applies or not.
The tools you have, so slower doesn't necessarily mean more expensive. It just means that your game plan is more resilient for the longer game. Bosses, for example. It's a very good card against a control deck because it's inevitable. You play it, it drains 2 every turn, which is also built for a longer game. In this case, you're actually not trying to be the faster one, you're trying to be the slower one.
Even slower.
Even slower. And the control deck has to react to go a little bit faster to not die to your aggressive starts. Like if you go Llanowar Elf into Stormseeker, you're doing a lot of damage on turn 2 and 3. That means they're going a little bit in your direction and you're trying to leap jump them. So your deck kind of has both options. When the control deck plays too many mass removal spells, you're boarding out Llanowar Elves and Elfish Mystics because they're way too fragile for their plan. Because you play one mana creature, 2 mana creature, 3 mana creature, and then they just all die. And you board in the more expensive stuff to live in the longer game.
Okay, I think I got the general idea. I hope that helped you as well. One question is left for me. What is with combo decks? Because they're kind of not in the triangle, but they're a big part of Magic, so...
Yeah, combo decks are like the weird cousin of Magic, you know? You never really know what you're getting. You know they're there and like something is gonna happen, but you don't know really how the problem will arise and what to deal with it. So the problem with the combo deck is they usually don't win over certain means of the game by attacking. They don't really have a speed or they don't really put pressure on you except for the clock ticking you down. It's like you die on turn 5.
They have their combo.
The way of interacting with them is restricting their resources to make them not win until you kill them. Usually aggressive decks are very good against combo decks because combo decks need time. That means get in a lot of cards that are quick, take out your removal spells, more creatures, more quicker interaction to just put on the clock and put it down. And for control decks, the answers are very specific depending on the combo. Let's say you take a combo deck that works over the graveyard. You're boarding Unlicensed Hearse. You're boarding Rest in Peace, right? But all those cards are not bound to tempo, they're not bound to speed. You're trying to prevent your opponent because once your opponent is not winning, it doesn't matter what you win with. There's no clock, right? If you stop them, you have infinite amounts of time. So it also kind of depends on the combo, which is the weird part, because a lot of the combos are different. I don't know if you know Solemnity and Nine Knives.
Where you have like this shield that protects you from any damage whatsoever.
Very good. Yes, so you have 2 enchantments, and this is a combo because you effectively never take damage anymore, which is very good against aggressive decks because that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And control decks kind of say like, nah, I don't care. Like, you can have no damage eventually. I'm going to do something else to you, which makes you lose the game.
Yeah.
So combo decks are also so vastly different in how they try to win. It's very hard to assess.
Okay, then thanks, Toppo, for your explanation. I hope you guys had fun and you learned something like I did.
Yeah.
It was very exciting to be here with you. And then again, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, leave us a comment if you want to see more explanations in like Magic, general rules or whatsoever.
If you want to see something happen, do all of those things, and if the people align with your interests, we're gonna do it.
You have the power.
You have to. We're all the puppets doing the content.
Okay, bye.